Guys, welcome to day 3 of my web development journey. So do you guys see all this that's on your screen right now? All this that's on the screen? Well, all this was made possible due to a few other HTML tags that was introduced in today's class and an introduction into CSS. Now, CSS is called cascading style sheet. What is it used for? It is used to style the look of our website, like basically like the color of the website. For today, it was just color that we did, but he said it was used for colors, the font size, the font style, and some other cool things about CSS, but he said we'll elaborate more in our next class. So I'm going to show you guys in a few minutes exactly how I was able to achieve all this. So how we did it, first of all today we opened VS Code. Now my VS Code file is already opened right now. Everything, all the code necessary has been written down. So I'll explain something to you now. First of all, let me open the document and limit it one side so I can show you exactly what each code does. Now, as you look carefully, first, before I talk about the website, as you look carefully, you see here all this minus this. Let me remove this. This will be important later. But for now, let me remove it. Let me open the yes. Now, all this right here, this one all the way to here. All this, they weren't exactly typed word for word. In the first video that I made, I talked about this. This is basically part of the HTML boilerplate. But yeah, I talked about it. But now, how was I able to achieve this? All I needed to do was come here. Everywhere was blank. The whole of this place was blank. So I came here. Now, just to show you guys exactly how I did this, I'm going to come here. This is the folder. How did I get this folder here? I already created the folder inside my file explorer. In my earlier videos, I showed you guys how I did it. So I came to file. When I opened VS Code, I clicked on file and I clicked on open folder. And I went to exact location of where my folder was, selected it, and then clicked on select folder. But I'm not going to do it again, so let's cancel this. Let me open the Chrome again. So after I opened the folder, all the files are already created in it, were already there, except this and this and this. They were the only ones that were not there. And even this assignment, so which is basically the assignment that they gave us for today's class, but I'll dive deep more into that later. So after I opened the folder, put it into VS Code, this is how it appeared, like this. Now, for the purpose of just this video, to show you how I did this particular format here in the HTML, I'll just come here to this folder and move here, and then see as it shows new file. This is new file, so I'll click on it, and then I'm going to type let me type dev.html. Now this is exactly how I did that code. So I came here and I pressed shift exclamation, and then I pressed enter. Automatically VS Code already understands all of this and its function, its basic function. So it just brings out everything and even names the tab for you automatically. Like these tabs here, this particular tab, it just named it document. Basically everything was set like this. Now let me go back to today's class. So how was I able to achieve all this? All of this, everything here, how was I able to achieve it? But I'm going to start with this hello world exclamation. Now you already know how I did that. After writing this particular one, I immediately, under the body element, I created a body element first. I created a body tag automatically and then created a h1 tag. Now there's one thing he told us when it comes to how all these tags work in VS Code. Unlike in Notepad, when you're typing it, you have to type it everything as it is. It must be completely typed 100%. But inside of VS Code automatically understands most of the code you are doing. So let's say I came here and I created a new line. Instead of typing the angle brackets, that is the less than and greater than angle bracket, and even typing the next one, I will just type h1, just the name of the tag, and then press enter. As you can see, it automatically itself created the opening tag of h1 and the closing tag of h1. So Ctrl Z, Ctrl Z. Perfect. Now that was the same method I used to creating all of these other tags. Now, the first thing I did after creating the h1 tag, I created the h1 tag. I created the HTML, the body element tag. Then I went in the middle of the opening and closing tag of the body and created the h1 tag, and then put hello world exclamation. That was how I was able to achieve this particular text. Now in today, he taught us how to create tables. You see this SN, serial number, name, age, which is serial number is 1, name Samuel, age 18. Basically, that is the age, that is the format that we're using: serial number, name, and age. Now, although he didn't teach us how to do the lines that I draw around it, all those lines, but he said he will teach us more on our next class. So how do you create this? You first of all create the table tag. You create the table tag the same way you created the h1 tag in VS Code, the same way you create the table tag. Inside the table tag, you create the table head tag. That's what T head stands for, the table head. What is the table head? Table head is basically all this. That is the heading of the table. That's what it means. So in order to get this, and this inside of the table head, you create another table head, but this one is TH. It is not similar to this one. The reason why we created this is so that everything can be aligned like this, like the way it is here. So that everything here, not just the top, just this heading, can be aligned perfectly well. So inside of it, we created this other table head tags, TH. For each of the names, the serial number, the name, and the age, they have their own respective table head inside of the table head tag. So after we did that, to make all of these other ones work, we created the table body elements, which is just the whole of this. Like the way the body element contains everything that you see on the website when you open the website, that's the same way it works on tables as well. So inside of the table body, how do we create this first row? We created a table row element, a table row tag. In other words, we created a table row tag. Inside of the table row tag, we created a TD, which stands for table data. That is the information inside of the table. So each of these names, each of this information, number 1, Samuel under name, and age 18, they are all tied to their own respective table data. As you can see here, table data 1, table data Samuel, table data 18 inside of the table row element. Now all this is called an element. Inside of it in total opening and closing tag element. So the same way goes for creating the second row, which is number 2 Thelma 17. This whole second row, we created another table row tag inside of it. Following, it has to correspond, whenever you are creating all this, it has to correspond with the first table head, the table head generally. So if TD is on the first one, what you put here should align with what you put here is exactly what will be under here. Hence here you put 2, the 2 is under the SN, like here altogether. Same thing with Thelma, is under name, like here, and 17 is under age, like here, basically, as you can see. So that is how you do it, and so on and so forth. Continue that way. Now for a little bit of an exciting part, all of this, it wasn't done with CSS, it was still done with HTML. I know it might look like CSS might have done this, but no, it's not CSS. Mind you, these are all contents. All these are all content in a website that you see whenever I open a website. CSS doesn't make it work. CSS makes it look good and make sure that using of the website is smooth. Basically, that's what CSS does. Now, how was I able to create all this? It's very simple. Mind you, all of this T-body, table row, all of this table row, table data, table head, all of them is inside of the table element. The table element. All together called the table element. Now, how did we create this? We used a tag called form. Now, why using the tag? Let me show this one side so you can see the whole code. Now, how we use the form? We created the form tag. Inside the form tag, we had different labels. We did label for empty string. That's what this means. When you put double quotation open, double quotation close with the angle bracket, that is, you write it inside of the opening tag like this. This particular 2 quotations is called empty string. So label for equals to this. So inside of it, we now put the full name. We now named full name and then closed it with its closing tag. Now, what is this for? Here for? This for here relates exactly with what all this are for. What all these particular things are for. Why we left here empty is because most people's names might require a lot of things. Like some people's name might have hyphen in between in order to link to surname from maybe their father and their mother side. Generally, that's why there is no string here. So there is no limit exactly whether it's letters or numbers or even special characters that can be typed in here. So now for under it, when we created the label, we now created input. The input is this box thing right here. We created the input and we put type equals to text. Now text is similar to this empty string right here. You can write practically almost everything you want here, including numbers and even special characters. How do we achieve this enter full name inside of the input? By placing a placeholder. By placing a placeholder in between this double quotation, open and close double quotation, we now wrote enter full name ... The placeholder is just a way to let people know when they are in a website and they want to log in. You let people know, okay, here is where you write your full name and so on and so forth. So we did the same for phone number, empty string, and then phone number. I think we have had to leave these 2 empty because I don't know if it will make change, but it's necessary for it to be around, but we have to leave it empty because the input is the box is where people are actually going to type. So in the input tag, we just put the attribute of type. That is the type of information that will be filled in here. We put it to be number, because sometimes, like he said, some people now, when they tell them enter a website, or yeah, put your phone number here, they start dropping their names and stuff like that, because yeah. So this is to avoid any accidental letter typing or them even putting their name. So we put the input type equals to number, and placeholder, like the placeholder for the full name, we put +234, basically representing Nigeria's number. Let's see, you can put it for whichever country website that you are building for. Now we now created another input, which is checkbox, which is this right here, the checking of this box. Then put another input type, password. What does this mean? Whatever you type in this password here, it just means it will not show. Like, let me type now. Let's see, I just type random things. It will just be dots. That's basically what the password input is for. Now you might be wondering, why is it that there is no password information in front, like full name and phone number? That's simply because we did not apply a label for it. Like, we didn't label it with password, and as well as the checkbox. Then this time input here, we put input, the type attribute equals to date time local, because it might request to put date of birth. So you could just click it and you can see everything is functional. Then some websites could request for, upload the documents, upload your passports, stuff like that. Then we now created input type file. So you could put pictures, any picture file, basically any file at all, you could put it in there. Anything that has it designate its own extension, like .jpeg, .png, even videos too. Then I created a button, which was another tag, an element that introduced button, which is basically the buttons on the website, and I call it submit, and then officially the thing just gets sent. Now right now, me clicking submit does nothing, because I haven't learned much. We haven't gotten to the part where it's required that we need to submit it. We have not gotten to the back end. This is just basically the front end. Without this part, there is almost no need of the back end at all. And then all of this was inside the form element, opening tag and the closing tag of the form element. So now we learned CSS. All of these wonderful things here were done with the help of CSS. Now I'm going to tell you guys exactly key things that we learned about CSS today. So we learned that there are 3 ways to use CSS in a website. We learned about the internal CSS, that is this, it can target all of a particular element within a single HTML page. That is, it's added to the head section of a web page. That is, for example, you just go, how do you make this? How do you do the internal CSS? By coming, you scroll up to the head element. Mind you, these first things that we wrote here was actually inside the head element. Minus this, I'll explain this later. This is still considering CSS. Now, how does that work? We come here into the head. It doesn't matter where, right? As long as it's after this and in the head, you press enter, and then you use what we call the style elements. So I just press style, it's already giving me the style, so I'm going to press enter, and it makes it complete. So I'm going to press enter, and in there, as you can see, let me choose something in particular. Let's say, let me change all the table data, for example. Now, how it works, instead of typing the angle brackets and then the table data in full to change anything about it, you just type TD space if necessary, but I like putting space, it makes the code clean, shift curly braces, both open and close. I come in the middle and I press enter. Now in here, it's already, as you can see, VS Code is already giving me some code, but this, we are not taught this. So right now, I'm not going to talk about it yet. So we will now type, let's say we want to change the color. So we type color, semicolon, space. See, then I can now type, let's say blue. Let's say blue. So we type blue. Perfect, 100%. Now let's go to the website and see exactly how it is. See, all the table data became blue. Now I've already used blue here before, so let me change it to something else so that you can understand. Now he taught us multiple ways of exactly how color works. So the first way was just basically typing the name of the color right there. But instead of typing, I'm going to use what they call hex code. Hex code. So now the hex code works like this. Shift hashtag, then look at this right here. We have double F representing R in RGB, which is the red, 00 representing G in RGB, which is green, and the other 00 representing blue in the RGB. That's what it represents. So I'm just going to click on this and automatically it becomes red. You go to the website and you see the table data is now red. Now he went further into other ways we could write color. So let's say, let me choose a different pattern. I'm going to press here. I'm going to hit enter. Mind you, everything I'm writing is in between these curly brackets because there's something called scopes. Now this part is something that I studied by myself. It's not something that I learned in class because I'm doing my own personal studies. The reason why you can only use these specific things in this element, it must be within the curly bracket because of what they call scopes. Meaning scopes helps us as developers to avoid conflicting our code with anything else. Let's say we try to type something else outside the code and run it. Anything we write within the curly brackets is the only thing that would be affected. Anything outside of the curly bracket would not be affected. So you also have to be careful in the same way because you might want to change something in a particular element using this. Again, this is called a CSS selector. You might want to change one thing in just only this particular selector, this particular element in the HTML, and then you end up typing outside the curly brackets and you could just end up with errors. I'm going to type background hyphen color shift colon space. I cannot choose, let's say lime, yes, and then I'm going to show semicolon. Something's missing, sorry. Okay, now it's perfect. Now you see there was an error that popped up earlier, meaning I forgot to type the semicolon at the end. In code, this semicolon just means full stop. Like the way English one is full stop, as in the dot. That is the same way it is in coding. You have to end your line of code with this semicolon, especially if it's not matched up with its own elements that could just help you complete it for you. So always be careful about which colons go where. This column is used to introduce a value. Sometimes in coding, it is used to introduce a value for this regular column. Then the semicolon ends it if it's not assigned to a tag, basically. So anyways, now if you go to the website, you will notice something. Background color. See, the background color has now changed. The background of each of these table data has its own background color. Notice how there's still spaces in between, mostly because it's targeting only the table data, not the whole body. I think this is part of a way of how he's going to teach us how to turn this into lines of rows and columns. Okay, now I'm going to teach you something else, another color way to make this thing work. So I'm going to come here again, press enter. I'm going to type background color again, press enter, and I'm going to type RGBA. Now there's an RGB way to do this, which basically is kind of similar to the hex code, except you use numbers and values. Now I cannot really remember how he explained that particular one of to what limit, but I think the R has a limit of 355. I think the RGB has a limit of 355. That is the highest number value. And then yes, that is basically how it works. You use those numbers to choose whatever color value, which one you want to be more intense. That is only necessary. Let's say you want to mix two colors. That means you want to get other types of colors, get more flexibility on what colors you want, either rather than just the basic colors that VS Code provides you, or the typical primary colors, all of those things. So now, instead of doing the RGB, I'm going to do RGBA. How does this help me? It helps me in terms of, let me hit enter. So it helps me in terms of the opacity of my mixture of color, or one particular color that I choose from the RGB channel. How do I affect the opacity? Through this alpha channel. That's what the A stands for in RGB. Red, green, blue, and alpha. That is the transparency, how transparent the color is. Now I'm going to come here, select this red. I'm going to select this red, and I'm going to type, sorry, I think this Ctrl Z, sorry. Okay, it already gave me a code. So now you see it's integrating it. That's one thing VS Code is very good at. So now this red is 255, the green is 0, the blue is 0, and the alpha is 0.5. The lowest you can get in alpha is 0, the highest is 1. So in between 0 point this, 0 point that, basically that. But the highest you can go in alpha is 1, which is opaque, so that the color just appears solid. So now I'm just going to press tab so that I can change. Remember, red, green, blue, and alpha. That is basically what it is. Let me so when you go here, you notice this particular thing, it got pulled down. That's basically what it does. So sometimes you might not really want to type some of these codes yourself. You might want to choose the regular type, the color, or hex code, for example, but you don't want to go through this process of making your code long. So you could just tweak how it looks here generally by tweaking the intensity, everything all together. So for now, I'm just going to leave it, and I'm going to come here, and you see the website, the color has changed and is no longer solid, kind of like the way this one is. So that is basically the same method that I used here. That's the same thing I used here, same thing I used here, same thing I used here. There is the internal way of doing it. That is the HTML, using the style element inside of HTML. Then there is the inline way of doing it. The inline way is kind of similar, but it's different. We use the style attribute instead. How do we use attribute? We use it inside of the opening tag of whatever tag that we're using. Now, as you can see, I already wrote all these things. So style, color, red, basically that is hex code. So remember, the first two numbers or first two letters represent red, the second two green, and the last two blue, RGB. So for this, I don't want to go through the whole process of typing the code in, and I'm going to just press tab. And now everything has been set. I'm going to show you guys exactly how it looks now. So you can see the I love programming has now changed to red from blue. That is the way to do it, especially if you want it inside. So that is the second way. Now the final way is called the external. The external way. Now how do you do that? By creating a CSS file. So the first thing we did was create a folder. Now for the purpose again, I'm just going to create a folder. How we did it. This is how we did it. So you came to an empty space, you select it, you type it, select it like this, you right click, and then you tap new folder. And then I'm going to call it CSS. No, I'm going to call it YouTube.css. And I'm going to hit enter. The folder has been created. So I'm going to right click here again, and I'm going to go select new file. And this one, I'm going to call it YouTube.css, which is basically the extension file for CSS, which is like HTML. Extension file for HTML is HTML. Extension file for CSS is CSS. Now we're going to hit enter. Now that I've created that particular one, how we just implemented it now, instead of going through that whole process, or let me go through it so I can show you guys exactly how it works. So how I'm going to do that is I'm going to open my assignment 2 profile the way it is, like this. Open my assignment 2 profile, or you know what, yes, I'm going to, but for now let me create another file, a new file, and call this one YouTube2.html, and I'm going to hit enter. Now I'm going to come back to my assignment 2 so I can show you the external way. I'm going to come to my assignment 2, and then I'm going to just click here, Control A, Control C to copy, and then I'm going to move it to YouTube 2 HTML. Click Control V to paste every single code. Now I'm going to right click and open with Live Server. In case you're wondering how I was able to actually do that, there was an extension that I already installed prior to the class. It wasn't taught. How they taught us how to do this particular thing, I'm going to show you guys instead, that particular one. So we can't, let me cancel, no, let me leave it the way it is. So we came to this place, selected the file we wanted, right click and went to copy path. Then we selected it. We came to our web browser, in this case is Chrome. We added a new tab. We came here to the search bar while the cursor was still blinking, and press Ctrl V, and then we hit enter. That was exactly how we brought it here. Now I'm going to show you guys exactly what is happening here. So I'm going to cancel this line of code right here. This is the way we were meant to do the external way, but I'm going to cancel it out completely. Now I'm going to look in this code. I want to change some things. So let's start with this H1 element, my portfolio. I'm going to go into the CSS file that we created earlier, type here, and then type H1 space shift curly brackets in the middle, hit enter, and then I'm going to type background color. See, it's already highlighting it, so I'll just hit enter, and then I'm going to choose this color, aquamarine. Now I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to refresh. Notice how nothing happened. This is because of one particular thing. We need to link this CSS file to our YouTube 2 HTML file. Otherwise, all that we're doing here wouldn't function. Now, how do we do that? We come to the YouTube HTML file. Inside of the head element, we come here, and then I type this link. It highlights the link, and then it creates this for us. Look at the way it is. style link attribute rel, which just means is the relationship. As you can see, say this attribute names a relationship of the link document to the current document. The attribute must be a space separated list of the link types value. It's just basically, you know, a relationship attribute. Let's just call it that. So it types this attribute equals to quotation style sheets. Well, it's like, what exactly are you planning on linking is the CSS style sheet. Then high ref, in this is href, it just stands for hypertext reference, and then we put the equals sign and quotation. Inside it's already giving us what to type, but it's not exactly correct. Okay, it's correct, yes, because I saved it as youtube.css because this is the first time I'm creating a youtube.css file. So I'll just enter by pressing tab so that automatically it enters, and you see the line that is drawn. That means it's successfully linked. Now if I come back here to the browser and I refresh, see, it links automatically and it just appears on the portfolio. So that's the same method you use when you want to add the other colors, but once you have linked it once and for all. You don't need to do this again. You don't need to think about it. So I can always come back to the YouTube HTML, to the YouTube CSS, and then just enter a new line and just type, let's say let's say paragraph. Now I want to change the ordered lists like I mentioned in my last video. I'm going to press space shift curly brackets, then I'm going to go here, press enter, and then you see you already gave us the RGB method, the one that I didn't type that time. Instead of RGB, it's RGB, so it just gives us the value imputed automatically of red, green, and blue. So I want to do color. This color is just basically the color of the text. So I'll press enter, and then I'll now choose, let me choose chartreuse. I love to choose random colors that I've never seen or heard of before because I don't want it to be so basic. So now that I've changed it, I'm going to come here, the ordered list, and I'm going to refresh it. As you can see, the ordered list 1 to 3 has changed to that particular color. That is the same way it is. Let's say I want to change the entire background of everything here. We already know what that is. That whole place is called body. So I'll just press enter here and then just type body and space shift curly bracket, and then I'm going to enter, and then background color is already there. So let me just type tab, but I will change the color from yellow to slightly something more pleasing to the human eyes that will not conflict our color. Let me type dark, okay, let me type, okay, dark green. Okay, now it's changed, and I'm going to come here and I'm going to refresh and change the background. So basically this is how the assignment is. This is just for the purpose of this video. This is how my actual assignment actually looks like. So I'm going to right click and open with live server because I already had it installed, and this is how I made it look like. So basically, yes. So that is all for today's video. If you like it, please don't forget to subscribe, turn on the notification, and I will come the next time to drop another video.